Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the Living in Hawaii show. Today, we are going to be talking about if Kauai is right for you. So, also known as the Garden Isle, it's known for its lush landscaping, its slow pace, its local charm. And today, we're going to get a little bit deeper. So, we're going to break down a little bit about the Kauai lifestyle. Is slowing down right for you? We're going to talk about if you can afford to live on the Garden Isle. We're also going to talk about choosing the right side of the island. And then also, is this a temporary dream or a long-term commitment? So I'm going to be your host today. I'm Kelly, and I'm coming from the Hawaiian Islands. So I'm tuning in live from a different island over here. And I had the pleasure of doing one inter-island trip back in, I think, 2021 over to Kauai. We had a fantastic 5-day trip, rented the Jeep, but I haven't been back since. So I'm really excited. We have some local experts on today, and so we're going to hear all about it. So we have Ronnie Margolis on and Kat Mobley, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about Kauai. So first and foremost, do you guys want to introduce yourself? I know you've been on this show a couple times, but Ronnie
Margolis. I am a team leader with eXp Realty. That's one of my jobs. I also serve as the president of the Rotary Club of Honolulu Bay, and Rotary is huge in Hawaii with 53 clubs. I love serving the island. I honeymooned here in 1993, came back for my 10th anniversary. That was my sort of nostalgia piece. And my wife, who never liked living in LA, said, "What about here?" And I said, "Okay." We brainstormed a business called the Electric Banana, went to share it with my friend who was a longtime North Shore realtor with clients like Graham Nash and Bette Midler. She looked at me and said, "That is so cute. You'll never make a dime doing that here. You ought to come sell real estate with me." I said, "Okay." And I just switched locations and careers. And my friends were all betting if I'd last a year or 2 or 3. And 21 years later, I've really appreciated the opportunity to be here in this beauty. And I tell people this is the most beautiful place on earth. Of course, I haven't traveled to every exotic place, but if it's not the most, it's at the top, close to the top.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on, Ronnie. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And then Kat?
Aloha, everyone. My name's Kat, and I am a transplant to Kauai, and I've been here for over a decade now. And same kind of story as Ronnie. I honeymooned here. Was living in California, honeymooned here, and me and my husband just fell in love with it. Kept coming back year after year. We got married here, and then and I got pregnant. I was like, we have to move there, and so we made the jump from California to Kauai and have been loving it ever since. And I met Ronnie actually through music. So we were playing in a band, and then he got me to coerced me into joining his team too. So now we're all a happy family here on Kauai.
Awesome. I'm so happy to have both of you here with the connection you have as friends and also local residents. So it's going to be a good show. Well, let's get started talking about slowing down, finding the pace of life in Kauai. So maybe Ronnie and Kat, can you tell us kind of what your day-to-day life is, outdoor activities, nightlife? What is some slower pace? What's the lifestyle? Ronnie, you want to go first?
I'll tell you about my day, but before I do, I'll just say that when I came here in 2004, I had a part-time position as a consultant for a nonprofit in LA. And back in 2004, America Transair, you could buy for $1,100 a pass for all the flights you could take between the islands. They were associated with pleasant Hawaiian holidays, and they had a whole thing going on. I went back and forth quite a few times that first year, getting on the freeways. And of course, every year LA gets more dense. And one day I came back, I was driving through Kapa'a, and I thought to myself, maybe that California rhythm isn't right for me. Maybe this is a better rhythm for me. So Obviously, everyone has their own lifestyle. I wake up and I usually meditate for about an hour. Then I walk my dog. For many years living in Kapa'a, the only multi-use path in the state of Hawaii is called Ke'alahele Makala'e, means the path by the sea. So walk there, could be 40 minutes, could be an hour and a half. And then start my work day. And, I'm either doing real estate or philanthropy. And then many days at about 4:30, I head up to the pickleball courts, play for a couple of hours. And I think anywhere in the country, of course, pickleball is definitely an active senior opportunity. Unlike many people, some of the top surgeons and doctors and, professionals that could be making a lot more money living someplace else, they're here because of one thing: the ocean and the surf. Yeah. I'm not one of those people, but we do camp out sometimes at Anini Beach, and that's one of the fun things to do. And yeah, sometimes we go and watch the full moon by the ocean. That's pretty cool.
That sounds amazing. So it sounds like a nice mixture of doing some community-oriented projects as well as some outdoor activities in your day-to-day life. What about you, Kat?
Well, my lifestyle here on Kauai, first of all, coming from California, it's just a completely different pace. Slow it down, and that's what I love. I remember being in California and just being so anxious and just like go 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 go, get them, gotta get here in traffic, and then moving here, it was just like it's like a forever long deep breath, which is great. And it works for me. And of course here it's going to be different for everybody because everybody has different ways and everything, but I really do love the slower pace. And mostly I love it because my kids I can just let them run outside, I think back to if I was living in a big city on the mainland, I don't think I would be comfortable. Of course, it depends on where you live, but I don't think I would be just comfortable enough to just like let my kids go outside. But here I am, which I love, and it makes me happy, which if I'm happy, they're happy. So it's, it's all good. And the whole idea of having them being able to go to the beach and get all of their energy out into the ocean. Amazing. We just did a reef camp with this wonderful, wonderful program, Reef Guardians, and it teaches the kids at a young age how to identify what's going on with the reef and how to help preserve the reef and the island creatures and fish and just life in general, to protect the reef and to help it grow back because it's in danger right now. So they just did that last week at Anini Beach too, because the reef is just large and long. And but it's just, the opportunities for me as a mom raising my kids here on Kauai in a slower pace is just, I love it. I just love it.
That
I
sounds
think
amazing.
historically, there's a lot of history in the Hawaiian culture. They have this word aha pua'a, and the people used to live kind of in sections across the island. You basically had everything for life, from the vegetables and fruits and fish and water. And of course, that's not really how we live now, and we get a lot of food from the mainland. But I would say there's a very high component or high percentage of people with a heightened awareness of the environment, sustainability, taking care of what we call the Aina, the land. And I know that's, I think, of course, you'd probably find more of that on the neighbor islands, right? Maui, Kauai, and Hawaii, and not so much in the big city of Oahu. I always chuckle when I sit in an open house and people come in, they say, I'm thinking about retiring to Hawaii. We're going to go over to Honolulu and this and that. And I'm thinking, you walked into my open house in Kauai and you're thinking about Honolulu? Like, what's wrong with you? But different strokes for different folks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, coming here from the Los Angeles area and growing up in Philadelphia, people thought, well, you're going to go over there to that island all the time. You need that big city fix. Not.
Hmm.
No fix required.
Yes, and I think the slower pace of life, could be a blessing to some and some a challenge. So when it comes to people who might struggle with this, I think about my experience when I came to Kauai. I was with my mom and it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and we were getting ready to go out for dinner. And we go out and almost tons of things were closed. It was very not frustrating that there was nothing open, but I wasn't prepared for that. So I think it can be a challenge to some people that enjoy
Yeah,
nightlife and things like that. So
absolutely.
what about nightlife for you guys?
Well, Kat's the musician that works the most. So when she's playing, she gets to see a lot of nightlife. So she can talk about it more than I can, who's in bed by 8 o'clock.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is one of those things where if you don't know that Kauai gets up early with the sunrise and the surf and goes to bed when the sun goes down. There's not a huge nightlife here. It's not your nightlife island. This is more of the, um, for a lot of people, it's more of the wake up and adventure during the day and
Hmm.
enjoy the Aina during the day in sunlight hours. Um, Coming from, well, my background as a musician, and I'm still a musician here, there are conventions that happen at the hotels that have parties that go until like 10, but you're not going to find like the nightlife. There's no real like clubs. There's a couple, Big Wave Dave's that stays open in Kapa'a, and Rob's Good Times Grill. They kind of, they have they stay open later than others. But a lot of time, like, yeah, if you're looking for to go out to dinner and you start at 8 p.m., things are shutting down. You got to know things are shutting down. Like restaurants are not
Hmm.
open. There's not even a real like, yeah. You, you just have to keep it in mind. It shuts down early.
So
You're
the
not going to get
Kauai
your
life.
nightlife fixed.
Yep. Fewer nightlife options. You're going to have the more outdoor lifestyle, more community oriented, focusing on sustainability, which is amazing to hear because that's what you guys are doing as locals. You're really paving the way. So let's talk about, if all that sounds great to our viewers and they're thinking about Kauai, making a move, relocating, let's talk about the cost of living and affordability. There's a couple hot topics when it comes to that, but let's start with like groceries and the experience of your day to day. Do you guys have any insight on comparing that maybe to your past experience in California? I know it's been a while, but any insight that you notice from even your clients?
I think that you got to kind of take a step back and think about what comes to Kauai on a boat. A lot of things come to Kauai on a boat. What's already here? When people come to tour, my wife is very frugal and she has a long list of all the free things to do on this island. And when you live here, there's still a lot of free things to do. You don't have to pay for some beauty that's entertaining. There are the sunshine markets. There are farmers markets, every day of the week in a different place, right? Saturday morning, you've got 3 up on the North Shore, one in Kilauea at Anaina Ho, one in Princeville, one in Hanalei. And you have local merchants selling locally made products. And you can buy avocados when it's the right time of year that have about 5 times the meat of the little Hass avocados that you buy on the mainland. And you may
Mm.
pay $3 for them, $4. So food is an area where you can really have a super high quality and affordability. Housing is, in the more expensive range of the country, but taxes aren't. When you live here, you pay less than $3 a thousand for tax. And so if you're coming from the mainland, our property taxes are very affordable. But I think in general, if you live in San Francisco, if you live in LA, if you live in Seattle, you live in Chicago, if you're coming from a big urban area, not like the Midwest or something, things are more expensive. I love to put cilantro in my salads. A bunch of cilantro at Safeway is $3.99. When I go up to Spokane and I go to Gross Out, natural grocers, it's 99 cents. So I walk out of a Trader Joe's and I go, wow, I got this for $60. Holy mackerel. So yeah, it's just something to keep in mind, but you won't spend a lot of money on gas, not a lot of places to go, and you won't spend much time in traffic. We don't have much of that. And there's tons of things to do, that are free. So that's my take on affordability. I know when I first moved here, I got the sense that when I would meet local people, they would ask me two questions almost always. First one was, where'd you come from? Second was, are you retired? Because they assume if you're living here, you must be wealthy and retired. But I see so many young people and young families making a go of it here. And I think it's, certainly, people that are very kind of dotting the I, crossing the T, doing the mathematics. You're not going to do an analysis of living on Maui or Kauai and say, this is the most affordable place. And as working in helping people with their property assets, it's not uncommon for someone to come here and then they get older. The medical care we'll probably get into that, but it's like country medicine, it's rural. And their family's back on the mainland and things cost half as much and their kids are there. And hey, they bought a house for $600,000 in 2014 and they sell it for $1.7 million now. And off they go to live in a more affordable place. So, that's just the economics can be challenging, but if you've created an affluent life where you can afford to come here, I don't think you'll find a finer place to live. I like to say it's a common of a first world and third world country. You want to go to Starbucks, you want to go to Target, Ross, all those things, Costco, of course, come on down. If you need to wear a suit, which you never do, and you need to go to a dry cleaners, you'll wait about 9 days to get the clothes back. So some third world and a lot of first world.
And
That
there
was a great
is no
summary.
Trader Joe's here.
No, because their model is trucking. You can't truck across that big ocean. They won't be here.
Nope.
Yeah.
That was great. Kat, do you have anything to add to that from your experience?
I mean, he summed it up very well. And I mean, coming from a mom perspective, it's just groceries are way expensive. I mean, yes, you do want to take advantage of all the sunshine markets, and around the corner from my house is Farmer Ned, where he sets up his stand and we just go there twice a week, which is great. And just, but like seriously, Costco is the most affordable place to shop for almost everything. If you can't get it from one of the sunshine markets but if you're looking for the diversity of shops, we're not a big island. We don't have like all of the choices.
Furniture stores.
It's limited choices. Yeah, there's only like a couple furniture stores, and it's it's high end and mid-high end.
It is the islands. And I know of at least 3 merchants that recycle stuff from the Four Seasons and St. Regis, and that stuff comes around. And when we moved here 21 years ago, our friends who had moved from the Bay Area said, when you come to Kauai, do not bring anything. Don't bring anything. You can get it all here. If you have a brand new car or something, okay, but you don't need anything. Now, our interpretation of that was 11,000 pounds. I mean, for me, I was right at the juncture when music was moving from, physical modules and furniture to software-based stuff. And once I got, my 500-pound piece of workstation in my studio, I thought, what the heck was I thinking? So There are some things, you could you could buy a vacation rental condo and furnish it real nicely on Kauai with what I was just talking about for $5,000. So, there are, I was thinking of, earlier, I just wanted to bring up this point. I think of this client of Cats, and they were working for one of the game companies as a sound designer, living in LA, a couple little kids. I don't remember if they have 2 or 3. When teleworking became more normalized, it's like, am I going to raise my family in LA, out in Santa Monica, Playa del Rey, whatever, Culver City? Or am I going to live on 4 acres, in the mountains of Kauai, which would be a healthier environment for my kids? That's like a no-brainer. And so, the other thought I had, I just wanted to share is, if you're thinking about retiring here or buying a home, you need to get educated, because there are lots of ways for buyers to acquire property. It's not just a world of put 20% down and, you're going to buy $1 million house and you don't have 200 grand. There's lots of different options to mitigate that and make your cost more modest. So don't throw in the towel if you're using that mindset. There's more options.
That was great. And just throwing in my 2 cents and what I have to remember when I think about affordability is it's really there's sacrifice. Everybody that lives here, no, if you've been here 10 years, 5 years, your whole life, there's a level of sacrificing that you have to do. And it can be in terms of what groceries you pick, your housing. So I think it's just something that you have to have that mindset that there is going to be some sacrifice that has to be made to live comfortably or not live comfortably.
It's so individualized. I tell people that one of the most affordable forms of entertainment for those that are interested is the game of golf. Now, there's 9 golf courses on the island. 2 of them are run by the county. The Wailua County Golf Course is one of the top courses in the state. It's got 6 holes with ocean views. If you are a senior and you live here, you can get a monthly card to play all the golf you could possibly handle for $48. You can't play a round of golf at a public course for that anywhere in America. So there are some things that are quite affordable. And even though that course loses money every year, if the county were to raise the prices, the Hawaiian, Japanese, and Filipino retired workers here would have a mutiny, and it's not going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was great. Thank you guys for speaking on that. So let's go down to choosing the right side of the island. So I'm familiar, there's the north side, there's the west side. So tell us, Ronnie, why don't you break down some of the different areas? And then Kat, maybe you could touch base on what each of the areas bring.
Well, I'm going to start from the west side, because here, we use the plat and parcel system of real estate, which runs counterclockwise. So out on the west side, you've got towns like Waimea and Keikaha. It's more like old Hawaii, and I'm not going to go into details because I'll leave that for Kat. As you head east, you get to towns like Hanapepe and Ele. Again, it's still considered the west side. It's the drier side of the island. If you like dry weather, you don't want much rain, you're always going to be, advised to go towards the west side of the island. Once you get further east, you get to towns like Kalaheo, Lawai, Omau. Some of the areas, the rain moves from the mountains, towards the sea, comes from Mount Vaialiali, which is the wettest place on earth in the center of the island. And it can be moist in those towns, but as you get closer to the coast, and this is true island-wide, you get less rain. And so eventually you get to Kaloa and Poipu, and that's a very popular tourist area. And then when you keep going east, you'll start to head north and you'll be on the eastern side of the island. And that's our town core, that's Lihue. So if you appreciate being, walking distance to Walmart, I happen to live in a condo complex that's walking distance to Walmart. I don't like the store personally. Don't hold that against me. But if you want convenience, everything is within 3 or 4 minutes when you live in town. And a lot of people, they'll say, well, we want to be, we don't want to be more than 10 minutes from the ocean. And we go, great, the whole island. You can't find a place that's more than 10 minutes of the ocean, hardly, unless you go way up to KAUAI or something in the mountains. And then, yeah, I did bypass KAUAI, so that's a very popular mountain area for hiking, and a lot of people have cabins up there. They're all leasehold, but it's the only place that would be kind of like a cooler spot. And then as you go north, you pass that Wailua golf course, and you get into the town of Wailua and Kapa'a. They're kind of adjacent. There's a little area called Waipoli that's between them. And that's where you get to the walking path, the path by the sea. That's going to run when it's done. There's 7 phases. It'll go all the way from the airport up to what we call Donkey Beach, 17 miles. Then as you get to the north side of Kapa'a, you're going to get to Anahola. There are a number of habitat communities there, and it's a high percentage of Hawaiian population. It's one of the more affordable areas. It's a very lush area. You just go north of that, then you get to this little area called Moloa'a, and that's lots of organic farming and composting places. A lot of food is grown there. And you're starting to get, towards the North Shore. You can say, well, where does the North Shore start? The southern tip of Kilauea would be in what's called the Hanalei Zone, and that is the North Shore zone. So most people might say Kilauea or maybe a little bit south. And Kilauea is an old plantation, sugar town. There's kind of 2 areas of Kilauea. There's what we'll call Kilauea Ag, where you've got a lot of rural estate farms. And then up to the town of Kilauea, and that's really expanding and growing a lot. There's new restaurants, there's new shopping centers. Then you get to Princeville. That's a master plan community. I think of it as the suburbs of Kauai, or one of the suburbs. Go over this little bridge, you get to the town of Hanalei. Very kind of famous, well reputed. The homes on the ocean there are some of the most prestigious and most expensive on the island. And as you head further north, you get into very remote, very verdant towns like Wainiha and Ha'ena. And then you get to the end of the road. You can't drive all the way around the island. You start with Polehale, which is a magnificent wild beach out in the far west side, and circle back all the way around. Then you're out at Ke'e Beach, which is at the end of Ha'ena. And if you want to traverse the Nepali coast there, you got to go by boat or helicopter or something. There are some pretty rugged hikes in there. And we didn't talk much about hiking, but that's another activity, with lots and lots of majestic hikes and incredible views of ocean and mountains and valleys. So that's it. If one of the things that are sometimes a concern, we get heavy rain, the Hanalei Bridge will be closed down. You can't come across the river. You're stuck there on that side of the island. If you got to work down in Lihue, it's going to be a challenge. And you'll get warnings that the river is rising, etc. So that's something to be mindful of. And if you want to be close to the medical facilities, well, we've got 3 hospitals, so you want to find your place by them. And again, it depends what you want. A lot of people think, I want to move to whatever you name the island. I'm looking for 2 to 3 acres, and we think, do you have any idea how much work that is? I like to say you can sit on the lanai and watch your grass grow here, because it's so verdant. Throw some papaya seeds in the ground. Next year you'll be picking fruit. So that's my island tour.
Yep, I love it. That was a great island tour. So, Kat, actually, I have a little game for you. So I have a list here of a couple different groups of people that Kauai would be perfect for. So how about I say the type of person and you pick on what city or town would be best for that type of person. So Kauai is perfect for nature lovers, eco-conscious individuals, artists, and spiritual seekers. So where would they be?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere, I know. What kind of spiritual seekers?
Okay.
And well, I mean, if they're okay, so what stood out to me in that one was okay, so the spiritual seeker, the artist, and the nature lover. So I would
Hmm.
say Kilauea would be a great town for them, right? Because there is a wonderful artist community up in Kilauea. Actually, it's hard because it's such a small island that everybody is pretty much connected with each other. And so in Kilauea, there it's very much an artist town up there. And there is, the properties are you have more farms and agriculture. Well, actually, all of Kauai is agriculture too. It just depends on what crops that you want to grow. Um, but with that, I would say Kilauea or Kapa'a would be good for that type of person. What's the next
Okay.
type of person?
What about retirees looking for serenity?
Retirees looking all of Kauai. Um, so I would say with retirees, a lot of from my experience in talking to most, they're looking, I think Princeville in that area would be most suitable for them, where they do have the community up there where it is, I mean, a good percentage is retirees up there. But then if they're also looking for serenity, you go into more Malka side of the highway, more towards the mountain, and you have more serene properties up there. But then also for retirees, if you want a drier climate, west side could probably work for you. But then for retirees also, I mean, and Ronnie's the expert for Sun Village because it's a 55 plus community there, which is located in the heart of Lihue, close to everything, close to the Wilcox Hospital, close to Walmart. That's a good place for retirees too.
Yeah, I think it depends. That question depends a lot on your lifestyle. If you want to get out and work in the field and you want to, farm and grow, have an orchard and stuff. Well, you live in the country, not so much which part of the island, because like Kat said, when you go to the Malka, which means mountainside of the island, because we only have one road that, goes around the circumference of the island, you can get a half acre, you can get an acre, you can get 3 acres. And I think of that in terms of some people, in the work that we do, it's really important to understand what does that mean to you? Because if you say, I want something that's private, does that mean you want to have mock orange hedge around so you don't see the rooftops? Does that mean you're on 5 acres? Does that mean, you don't have a lot of noisy neighbors and trucks across the street? It can mean different things to different people. But,
Mm.
if you're an active person, and you want to be out on the land, then there's lots of options. And price wise, it tends to be the closer you get to the resort communities, the higher the price is. The more you're out in the country, whether south side or east side, the more affordable things are. And then probably the most affordable area is the west side. And I would say, if there's a place that's more like back in the 60s or 70s or quieter or less hustle and bustle and less everything, the west side, is going to be that. And, like Kat said, I recently moved into Sun Village, and, on an affordable level, you can get a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo with an ocean and mountain view and all the amenities and pools and workshop and music room and hobby room and gym and game room, for uh, under $400,000. So you won't find that anywhere else on this island. And yeah, you're closer to medical facilities, although, footnote, and I think many people know this, or at least I think it would be important to know this. When I say we have rural medicine, we've got one of the best bone and joint centers in the world. People come here, they're very well reputed. But we don't have a catheterization lab. If you need heart stuff, if you need heart surgery, you're being medevaced over to Queens or Kapiolani or one of the big hospitals in Oahu. And you just need to know that that's part of, living here. And that's just part of what you deal with. Yeah.
Okay, that was great. So, what about remote workers?
You go.
Oh, I love Kauai.
You go. Yeah. I've been working in the cloud for 8 years. You're going to tell people I work in the cloud. Oh, where's that? Well, everywhere. Yeah, no. I mean, you've got Hawaiian Tel with, very inexpensive gigabit fiber. You have Spectrum, if you like their products, with high speed, low speed or high speed cable. And yeah, I mean, like I said before, when I was talking about Kat's clients, where would you rather grow your family? If
Mhm.
you're, in that generation. Of course, for, millennials, I mean, people can be in their 20s, and you think about affordability. Well, if they're working for Google, no worries. You can work here. And people work for international companies. There's a lot of teleworkers here. I found it interesting during COVID. We all were surprised by how the prices of real estate went up, because at least me, someone who follows the numbers, was surely thinking they were going to go down. And every area of the country had its own drivers. I spent time in the Northwest in Spokane, and prices got high in Portland and Seattle, and people started going east, and the Spokane market exploded. Then there was Idaho, an open carry state. So if you want that, and you want to be red, people move to Idaho. Um, Kauai was the strictest of all 4 islands, in terms of quarantine. I mean, there were, in the beginning, we had some days with no cases or one new case. So,
Mhm.
you had the safety during COVID of that concern. You had the ability to telework. Um, and that drove a lot of people here. And I think for all the islands, I mean, California is a big state, but for many reasons, whether it's political climate or fires or drought or earthquakes, there's a big group of people that want to get out of that state, and we're one of the closer alternatives. You can go to Mexico. That's popular and that's affordable, but a little more third world than Kauai.
Mhm. Great. Well, lastly, what about families that want to raise kids?
Oh, I
Well,
love
talk to the
Kauai.
mom in the group. I can talk about great grandchildren, but I'll let her go. She's right in the thick of it. She spent this year. She boldly went beyond where any musician realtor should go as the president of the PTSA at her children's elementary school in Kalaheo. And
Yeah. So, I mean, with raising families here on Kauai, it really depends on your situation and what your needs are, because every part of the island is going to be different. And every part of the island has its own school and climate and weather. So, what I like to tell anybody really, if they're thinking about raising a family here on Kauai, is the north side is going to Hanalei school up there is wonderful. There is no high school up there though, so there's limited educational experiences for people who wanting to raise their families here. Um, but it's a wonderful way of life. It is more of the resort community feel up in Princeville, and then you're getting into Kilauea, where Kilauea has their elementary school there, and then a new school that is a new charter school that is starting soon, Namahana, and so that's just going to be up and running. And then in Kapa'a, there's Kapa'a High and Kapa'a Elementary School up there. So that's where Kapa'a is the more uh, that's where more families live. There's more of, working families of the island in Kapa'a, and they have their kids all go there. And then when you get into Lihue, that's the more city. So if you want to be able to go shopping really easily with your families, Lihue is going to be best suited for you. Then when you get down to the south side, we have Kaloa Elementary, and then of course Kalaheo Elementary. where Kaloa is down by Poipu. It's the hotter side, it's the drier side of the island. It's more, there's a lot of more vacation rentals over there in that area too. And then if you want to get more hotter and drier, you go west. And that's where LA Elementary and Waimea Canyon Middle School and Waimea High is out there. So we only have, and then there's also the charter school, Alakai Okoi, and then the island school is the private school here, which goes from K through high school. So with my experience right now, my daughter just graduated, well, ended her fifth grade year. So now is her choice to transition into middle school. And she was trying to decide between where she was wanting to go, West Side, Waimea Canyon, or Chiefus in Lihue. And so once you make decisions, that's where you have to kind of like figure out your way of life, because if you choose one side, then you're going to have to figure out your timing, your family timing. How long is it going to take me to get groceries? How long is it going to take me to drive my kids to school? How long is it going to take me to, get them to all of their activities? So raising your family here is a lot of organization. You need to be organized and time conscious, especially of what part of the island you're on too, because since we do only have one highway that goes around, doesn't go circumnavigate, but there's only one highway. You have to keep that in mind too, is driving places, how long it's going to take you, if there's going to be traffic, because there is traffic here on Kauai. It's not as anxiety driven as any LA traffic or, mainland traffic, but you do have to keep in mind there is only one highway. If there's an accident on that highway, you just got to wait through it. And there's nothing you can do about it.
I wanted to just add a couple things to that thorough description of schools. One is you got to remember, because of the ocean and the water, you've got sailing camps, you've got lots of youth activities that have to do with the water. And of course, like any community, youth soccer, youth football, youth softball, and baseball. And there was one. Oh, I wanted to just say that the Namahana Charter School, so they're opening this year. They're doing a $10 million raise. They've already raised $9 million. So they're going to start with 7th and 8th grade. And then as they build their building, there'll be a full high school there. And it's really, very progressive minded, integrating a lot of Hawaiian culture. Island School, the private school in Lihue, is costly, but it's one of the best private schools in the state, with a whole, what would you say? Lots of kids that go to lots of, Stanfords and Harvards and Yale and those kind of schools from the Island School. And I think there's a lot, I'm a great grandparent, right? But I believe there's a pretty high preponderance of homeschool community. I know on the North Shore there's some very, very large homeschools, and the parents of those kids seem to really love what gets done there. Yeah. I want to say one thing that I forgot, or I don't think we talked about. I think there's a really high percentage of artists and musicians and creative people on this island, per our capita. We have 5 different theater groups. We've got 3 choirs, amazing children's theater with a great summer program called Summer Stars, and lots of musicians, Hawaiian music, pop music, jazz, funk, soul, Hawaiian. It's a very vibrant musical and theatrical community. I wanted to say that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ronnie and Kat, for coming on. We so appreciate you guys giving us the guide to the garden aisle. If anyone has any more questions, check out livinginhawaii.com. We also have a description below where you can click and book a meeting directly with Ronnie and Kat. But thank you so much, you guys, for jumping on.
My
Thanks
pleasure.
for having us, Kelly.
Always great to see you, Kelly.
You as well. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.